Welcome to Story Station, Season 2, Episode 5. In this episode, you can listen to 3 Indian stories. The first story is titled, Sun, Moon, and Wind Go Out to Dinner. Have you ever wondered why the sun is so hot, or why the wind is so annoying? This story has all the answers. The second story is titled, The Talkative Tortoise. This poor tortoise meets his doom just because he wasn't able to keep his mouth shut. The third story is titled, The Lion and the Crane. A helpless lion is at the mercy of a simple crane. What will happen next? Listen to this story to find out. Hope you enjoy it! I'll read a story called Sun, Moon, and Wind Go Out to Dinner. One day, Sun, Moon, and Wind went out to dine with their uncle and aunts, Thunder and Lightning. Their mother, one of the most distant stars you see far up in the sky, waited alone for her children's return. Now both Sun and Wind were greedy and selfish. They enjoyed the great feast that had been prepared for them, without a thought of saving any of it to take home to their mother. But the gentle Moon did not forget her. Of every dainty dish that was brought round, she placed a small portion under one of her beautiful long fingernails, that Star might also have a share in the treat. On their return, their mother, who had kept watch for them all night long with her little bright eye, said, "Well, children, what have you brought home for me?" Then Sun, who was the eldest, said, "I have brought nothing home for you. I went out to enjoy myself with my friends, not to fetch a dinner for my mother." And then Wind said, "Neither have I brought anything home for you, mother. You could hardly expect me to bring a collection of good things for you, when I merely went out for my own pleasure." But Moon said, "Mother, fetch a plate and see what I have brought you." And shaking her hands, she showered down such a choice dinner as never was seen before. Then Star turned to Sun and spoke thus, "Because you went out to amuse yourself with your friends, and feasted and enjoyed yourself, without any thought of your mother at home, you shall be cursed. Henceforth your rays shall ever be hot and scorching, and shall burn all that they touch, and men shall hate you and cover their heads when you appear. And that is why the sun is so hot to this day." Then she turned to Wind and said, "You also who forgot your mother in the midst of your selfish pleasures, hear your doom. You shall always blow in the hot, dry weather, and shall parch and shrivel all living things, and men shall detest and avoid you from this very time. And that is why the wind in the hot weather is still so disagreeable." But to Moon she said, "Daughter, because you remembered your mother and kept for her a share in your own enjoyment, from henceforth you shall be ever cool and calm and bright. No noxious glare shall accompany your pure rays, and men shall always call you blessed." And that is why the moon's light is so soft and cool and beautiful, even to this day. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. The next story begins in a moment. I will read a story called The Talkative Tortoise. The future Buddha was once born in a minister's family when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares. And when he grew up, he became the king's advisor in things temporal and spiritual. Now this king was very talkative, and while he was speaking, others had no opportunity to get in a word. And the future Buddha, wanting to cure this talkativeness of his, was constantly seeking for some means of doing so. At that time there was living in a pond in the Himalaya mountains a tortoise. Two young hamsas, or wild ducks, who came to feed there, made friends with him. And one day, when they had become very intimate with him, they said to the tortoise, "Friend Tortoise, the place where we live, at the Golden Cave on Mount Beautiful in the Himalaya country, is a delightful spot. Will you come there with us?" "But how can I get there?" the tortoise asked. "We can take you, if you can only hold your tongue and will say nothing to anybody." "Oh, that I can do. Take me with you." "That's right," said they, and making the tortoise bite hold of a stick, they themselves took the two ends in their teeth and flew up into the air. Seeing him thus carried by the hamsas, some villagers called out, "Two wild ducks are carrying a tortoise along on a stick." Whereupon the tortoise wanted to say, "If my friends choose to carry me, what is that to you?" So just as the swift flight of the wild ducks had brought him over the king's palace in the city of Benares, he let go of the stick he was biting, and falling in the open courtyard, split in two. There arose a universal cry, "A tortoise has fallen in the open courtyard, and has split in two." The king, taking the future Buddha, went to the place, surrounded by his courtiers, and looking at the tortoise, he asked the Bodhisattva, "Teacher, how come he is to be fallen here?" The future Buddha taught to himself, "Long expecting, wishing to admonish the king, I have sought for some means of doing so. This tortoise must have made friends with the wild ducks, and they must have made him bite hold of the stick, and flown up into the air to take him to the hills. But he, being unable to hold his tongue when he hears anyone else talk, must have wanted to say something, and let go of the stick. So he must have fallen down from the sky, and thus lost his life." And saying, "Truly, O king, those who are called chatterboxes, people whose words have no end, come to grief like this," he uttered these verses. Verily, the tortoise killed himself, whilst uttering his voice, though he was holding tight the stick, by a word himself he slew. Behold him then, O excellent by strength, and speak wise words, not out of season. You see how, by his talking overmuch, the tortoise fell right into this wretched plight. The king saw that he was himself referred to, and said, "O teacher, are you speaking of us?" And the Bodhisattva spoke openly, and said, "O great king, be it thou or be it any other, whoever talks beyond measure will be met with some mishap like this." And the king henceforth refrained himself, and became a man of few words. The end. I hope you liked this story. The next story begins in a moment. I will read a story called The Lion and the Crane. The Bodhisattva was at one time born in the region of Himavanta as a white crane. Now Brahmadatta was at that time reigning in Benares. Now it chanced that as a lion was eating meat, a bone stuck in his throat. The throat became swollen, and he could not eat food. His suffering was terrible. The crane, seeing him, as he was perched in a tree looking for food, asked, "What ails thee, friend?" The lion told him why. I could free thee from that bone, friend, but dare not enter thy mouth, for fear thou mightest eat me. Don't be afraid, friend, I will not eat thee, only save my life, the lion asked. Very well, says he, and caused him to lie down on his left side. But thinking to himself, who knows what this fellow will do? So he placed a small stick upright between the lion's two jaws, so that he could not close his mouth, and inserted his head inside the mouth, and struck one end of the bone with his beak. Whereupon the bone dropped and fell out. As soon as he had caused the bone to fall, he got out of the lion's mouth, striking the stick with his beak so that it fell out, and then he settled on a branch. The lion got better, and one day was eating a buffalo he had killed. The crane, thinking, I will sound him, settled in a branch just over him, and in conversation spoke this first verse. A service have we done thee, to the best of our ability. King of beasts, your majesty, what shall we get from thee? In reply, the lion spoke the second verse. As I feed on blood, and always hunt for prey, 'tis much that thou art still alive, having once been between my teeth. Then, in reply, the crane said the other two verses. Ungrateful, doing no good, not doing as he would be done by. In him there is no gratitude, to serve him is useless. His friendship is not won by the clearest good deed, better softly withdraw for him, neither envying nor abusing. And having thus spoken, the crane flew away. And when the great teacher Gautama the Buddha told this tale, he used to add, now at that time the lion was Devadatta the traitor, but the white crane was I myself. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. Thank you for listening to Story Station. We are adding stories as frequently as possible, so check back often. We would love to hear your feedback and any questions you may have. Thank you.